and that you can just crush stuff down and really work things down to powders by hand. That's really great with chaga, because when you do the chaga, what I do is I'll take some of the chaga in chunks like that, throw that in. I'll take some of the chaga and crush it to a powder and throw that into the tea, because the more surface area you expose, the more it's going to come out. And then I'll take some of the chaga, crush it to a powder, and throw it in the drink. And then I'll take some of that chaga, crush it to a powder, and I'll throw it into alcohol, because that pulls out different things. Then I'll take that alcohol after a week, mixing it up. Usually I put that in on the full moon, and then, or I'll put that in on the new moon, harvest it on the full moon. Then take that whole thing, dump it into the tea. The alcohol boils off, because the alcohol is a lower boil temperature than water does, and then those materials go in deep. And then, this is something I found out, and there's no research on this, but I'm just going to point it out here because you might want to get into this, is there's the double boiler technique where you have a pot of water, and then inside there, say you put I like using mason jars, with oil in it. And if you cook the chaga in that oil, it draws out stuff that you don't get otherwise. And it appears to draw out its Jing properties, which are like willpower, kidney, adrenal, that side of it is oil soluble. There's not any research on this out there. Almost all the stuff that's been studied on chaga is either water extracts or alcohol extracts of different kinds. But the fat soluble extracts of chaga, of wild chaga, are worth investigating. I've investigated it heavily. There's something about it. Like if somebody's too stoned, you put that on them, because that's when somebody's too high, what's going on is that their adrenals and the whole phenethylamine load is too high, and you can counter it herbally, and that does work. The actual chaga fat extract just knocks it out immediately.
You eat the fat? I mean, what do you eat? Just eat it?
You would eat it, yeah. So you just blend it into something.
Okay.
What proof alcohol do you put the chaga in? Like, do you put it in?
I use 190 proof. So I use organic ethanol. 190 proof.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then what I'll do with that, just so you guys know, and this, you guys can get this and use it, so that's cool. I'll take that, I'll do extraction with organic ethanol, and that's the only material that will be in there. And then when I actually mix it down into a tincture, I cut it with trap water from a spring. And that's really nice. So that way you can get that alcohol knocked down to, say, instead of being 100%, you get that thing knocked down to be 30% or 40%. 40% is really on the strong side. 30% is probably where you want to be. If you go lower than 30%, then you run into the risk of actually bacteria and stuff being able to form in there. So somewhere around 30% is kind of where I found out as a real ideal spot. 40% works. There's an interesting thing that we found out about our Ormus, and I think it's true of all Ormus, and I just want to offer this up, and that is the Ormus materials are alcohol soluble. The Ormus materials are alcohol soluble. They are not acid soluble. Like our Ormus gold is not acid soluble. Gold is, but not Ormus gold. But it is alcohol soluble. Is that been, that's kind of a, yeah, pretty much. Has anybody else found that to be true? Alcohol, I mean, from that research and kind of us stumbling across that, I think most of the people in the Ormus community have kind of stumbled across that. It seems to me that an excellent delivery vehicle for Ormus is alcohol. It's a great delivery vehicle to get it in. Okay, question here.
Yeah, like for those of us who don't have seemingly access or live on the West Coast to some of these mushrooms like reishi and chaga, I mean, I know we can buy the powders, but to buy whole pieces, I mean, I've seen it.
Where do you live?
I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I mean,
okay.
You can go to Chinese places,
yeah.
You can go to like Rainbow Foods. I've seen like reishi cut off slices. Is that pretty good to do that?
That has a high triterpene count. So if you do teas out of that, you're going to be like, whoa, this is bitter. It's not like the wild stuff. And that's how you taste the difference between the triterpene materials and the polysaccharide materials. No, excellent. They're great medicine.
Oh, so it's
yeah,
okay.
It's good. No, it's excellent. Yeah, but it doesn't have that same quality of magic.
Well, where do you get them?
Here's what you could do. You can call Tom Kushwa over there in New York, in Catskill Mountains, and he'll ship some out to you at a really good price, I assume.
Okay.
So, you know, and that's going on a lot. There's a lot of chaga and reishi trade going on between East and West Coast now, which is really fun. And I recommend that you do kind of play around with the wild versions of these mushrooms, not just the mycelium biomass, which are great medicines, amazing, but the other side of it has a little bit more of that intrinsic enchantment. Okay, question?
Which mushroom you're saying was the choice?
All medicinal mushrooms are good for the joints. Chaga powder is excellent. When you get the mushrooms, like that 24 mushroom blend that Dennis brought up here, remember that? That all of the unique novel compounds that are in the mycelium that you can't get to because they're inside the tree normally, but you can get to them when you grow them in a laboratory environment, have a high affinity for the joints. And there's about 4 essential sugars in medicinal mushrooms that are like glucosamine. They go right into the joint. And they're fucose, arabinogalactose, N-acetylglucosamine, and neuromonic acid. Acetylneuromonic acid. Those 4. Those are really powerful things about these medicinal mushrooms, is you can get high dosages of that stuff. Have you heard about the 8 essential sugars? There's 8 essential sugars, and those were 4 that I just named. Glucose is a 5th. I'd have to really, the other ones they're complex names, but I can pull it up on my computer. We can go over that if you want it on my computer in the room, but tomorrow if you catch me, I'll just have my computer, we'll pull it up and look at it. And they have very powerful antiviral, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal properties, and they're also excellent nutrition for certain things. Immune system, joints, nervous system in particular. Okay, question here.
Yeah, the water that you get out of your 3-stage aqua ovo, does that come out boiling?
What do you mean by 3-stage aqua ovo? You mean, do I put it through the battery of little filters that they have?
Yeah.
No, I never use that. I only use just the actual shell container itself. Yeah, I don't, because I'm on spring water and it comes out of my tap at 14 parts per million, I'm so happy about that, I cannot hardly even tell you. I mean, when you got spring water coming out of the tap at 14 parts per million, I don't even know what to say about it. I'm so happy about it. If you're filtering your water, and let's say you're, well, where do you live? Ohio. Okay, so let's say, are you near the Yellow Spring? You know Yellow Springs, Ohio?
I know, but I'm not there.
Okay, do you go to spring water, get spring water? Are you close to Pennsylvania? Is there any mountain springs near you?
No, 100 miles from Pennsylvania.
Okay, so that's kind of rough because Ohio is contaminated with a lot of fallout of pesticides, which gets into the groundwater table. And unless you have mountains, it's going to be in the water table. So it's hard to deal with like what to do about water, because well water can be contaminated, spring water can be contaminated. So you're going to want to filter it no matter what. You definitely need the simple stages of filtering, carbon filtering being the most simple. You can use zeolite, there's calcium filtering materials. There's a lot of different stuff that you can use in your batteries of different filtering materials. And what comes out the other side isn't exactly ideal, but if it's originally coming from a well, at least it originated from the earth and still has earth energies in it. If it's coming out of a municipal water system, I never recommend it no matter what. Municipal water systems are so contaminated, they're actually all contaminated with radioactive tritium. It's something you can look up and Google. Municipal water systems, and you cannot get that out. There's no way to get it out. And it has a half-life of 12 years, and it's a big issue.
Speaking of that, Mountain Valley spring water, you can get in the big glass jug.
Yes.
220
parts per million.
Should I filter that or?
No, that's a good question. Like what this gentleman was saying, let's say you have an aqua ovo filter which is 3 stages. You might want to take your Mountain Valley water and pour it through those filters to get that down. So at least you have an original spring water material to start with. It's high TDS, which is fine every now and then, not okay all the time. And then pour it through that 3-stage filter and then drink that. That's a good idea for regular use.
What about those bottled waters from Italy and Germany?
Oh, I love those.
I do too.
Yeah, those bottled water from like Wales and Scotland and Germany, and they always come in weird little bottle shapes and stuff. Love those. I'll take those. Let's say I was in Chicago and just ran out of spring water, and so I'm going to go get spring water from the store, always in glass and always one of those weird ones, because those people are actually like they know. Yeah, they're in, you know what I mean, like in Wales. I mean, they're not, you know, they're not in our state of consciousness. They're still in like, you know, that kind of.
Fiji water comes in plastic.
Fiji water is particularly troublesome because I've been to that plant. What they do is first of all, it's a well, and what they do is they blow the plastic and then fill it up with water immediately. And anybody who's been in the plastics business knows that you always let the plastic sit for a year, then put the material in it, because it's too dangerous otherwise, because it'll outgas or leach. And they don't do that. And no plastic bottling water company does that.
Poland Springs, Maine, is that
I really like Summit Springs in Maine. Summit Springs in Maine, and actually it's called raw water, is the only water that's bottled in the United States of America in glass that has actually never been treated with anything. It's the only one legally allowed to be done that way, because Summit Springs, you can go to summitsprings.com or you can just Google raw water. They are actually, they've been in operation for 350 years. And so that spring has such a reputation that the state government stamped it, said fine, it's okay to serve to the people just as it is. And so it comes in completely untreated. Otherwise it's going to be ozonated, ionized, boiled, UV light, all that stuff. So, we had fun here tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I want to give a big round of applause for Barry Carter. All right. This kind of stuff is so fun for me. I never get to talk about this stuff. People are like, can you talk about broccoli? Celery. We got a big bonfire we're going to have going out there. We can talk more and get into a little bit of a celebratory mode tonight. I'd be happy to talk to any of you if you want to come talk to me. Anybody ever read any of my books? Anybody ever burned any of them? I did put a whole section in my Amazing Grace book on Ormus that Barry did edit. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And that's something that if you're interested in that, it is in there because it's got to come out in literature. If you don't have the Ormus book, you got to leave with that. It's another one that's very important to have in your library. Amazing Grace.
What's it make?
The Ormus book is just called Ormus.
The one back here.
Amazing Grace
No,
or
it's
Amazing
not.
Grapes?
Oh, Amazing Grace.
Oh, okay.
Are you talking
Which book?
about Chris's book?
Yes.
Alchemy what's the exact title of that book, Christine?
I didn't read the fine print. I just always look at Ormus.
It's the Ormus book.
Yeah.
It has what is it, Barry? What's the title of the book?
What is in the Ormus book?
No, what is the title of Christine's books? That comes
Or something else.
Modern
Modern
Alchemy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have the best night ever. Welcome to the Ormus Conference 2011.
All right.
I just want to say you're almost
Yeah.